sure that Sam's area is it not Salter? Oh.
One or the other. Yeah. Cassie was over in Pensacola. Asked them. They didn't. That's why I was assuming the clear coat saved it. I just did Google search. Google it. How do I get it off? Said use acetone. Be careful. Careful. Hopefully it don't take off your other paint. It didn't.
It's county property, it's private. Have we sent a letter to the property owner? Have we sent a letter that we have on file, or are we just coming out and doing this? I know. that becomes public record. Unpaid parking lot doesn't make it uninhabitable. A lot of things you list there that don't guarantee habitability.
Bang that gavel. Like pork, on time.
On time.
I understand. I was in property management for a long time, but I'm telling you what's there. A lot of that's not habitability issue.
Have you already signed those checks?
Not all of that is habitability issue.
Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay.
An unpaved parking lot does not make it uninhabitable. I'm not signing that letter.
If everyone could please sign in, we'll get started. Are they? Okay. Yeah, they are. They're invited too. Thank you.
Signed you in.
I'm going to call the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. We have a quorum. First item for business is approval of January minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Powell, a second from Councilman Snow. There are no questions about January minutes for the CRA. Got to have a vote. January minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda is the February financial report.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Snow, second by Councilwoman Smith. There's no discussion. Please vote. Unanimously approved. Next item on the CRA agenda is persons to appear. I do not believe we have anyone here to appear for the CRA. And next item is other business. Do we have any other business, Mr. Jorgens?
Mayor, we do not.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Holly.
can I please have a moment to discuss something in the CRA?
Yes, ma'am. You are recognized.
We discussed this last week about the accountability, and Attorney Mead was going to get back with us for the CRA monies that were being spent. Is this the appropriate time to talk about this?
The part of the opinion that goes to the CRA? I don't see why not. Yeah, you're
Madam Mayor
yes,
and
sir.
Councilwoman, I had planned to bring that in the attorney's report because it was a matter that council had directed rather than CRA, and in observing the formalities, I think it's more appropriate in the council session. But I am prepared to address it and plan to address it in the attorney's report section, and happy to answer any questions during that or any other discussion that the council.
That's fine, because I've got some information as well, so we can wait until appropriate. Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so we will take up the CRA issue that is part of the city attorney's opinion during the council meeting in a little while. With no other business before us for the CRA, we are adjourned, and we will reconvene at 5:45 for the city council meeting. right now? Let's do it. Oh, you want to do it later?
Yeah.
Already signed this? Thank you, ma'am. So after the next, want to wait that long? About farmers. Thank you. Is that okay? I didn't get the order. I had a question. There was a requested, someone else.
What's the problem? Oh.
On over into what is your first name?
John.
I always look.
Now, it was 3 years a little more than I'll still.
Oh, hi, how are you? Hello, young man.
Yes, it does. It does definitely work for John. Yes, civic clerk was having a problem.
They're on civic clerk and there's the money.
It's a server issue on their end. Yeah.
Somebody better if it goes.
Well, we just went to that. That doesn't work out, we'll go somewhere else. YouTube? Not a bad idea. A lot of other cities do. YouTube seems to stay up and work.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Why don't we try something that works for a change? You're doing this for job pretty crap.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was your first name? Stephen. I remember your name. And I'm just Sharon.
Just share.
Yeah, you don't call me Miss Holly. And I'm just Sharon. John, that's what
Right.
other than
If I make that mistake, how much I love my mother and try to abide by her advice.
That's right. Yeah. I told Tim Milton, said he came to work back at 22 years old. So I said, I'm gonna tell you, boy, my boys are over there. I'll miss you. I come home to me if you don't do right. So,
Well, good. You gotta have that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the other kids will be getting and Brandon said, yeah, because I've been talking to this lady about a man. That kid.
Let's get a picture because then they'll pay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be here.
Yeah, cool. Ah, their academic team.
Hey, Mariella. Good. This is Stephen. I feel a warm fuzzy.
I know. Okay, nice.
Go is.
Good try. Like to look good in
Hey,
pictures.
with the best looking ones. Yeah. With the best looking ones up here.
Well, you were
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we know better than do that.
Okay.
I don't know if they get us sunshine for what we're wearing, but I still wouldn't want a phone call on a record. Well, you need to be careful about slinging them hips around, baby.
I'll have him look at it.
Well. Huh? He's slinging him here.
No, that's not coming. Quit.
I got it on it. They do that now. Number knee for her.
About time.
Thank you. Oh, these together. Oh, no. Don't hit my shoulder. Don't hit my shoulder. Surgery. Oh, you had surgery? Well, I had it down there, but when I had it on and.
Conference room back there. You guys saw that?
Well, I know, but while I'm sitting up here. Good. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
You know, he reads the whole thing, and then he's got to read me the op-eds and whatever.
These are even.
I knew you were going to be bringing them around.
But yeah.
I've already had this.
Here I'm already the longest lasting.
I didn't realize the.
That's good there, though.
But I still get a paycheck, right? Oh yeah.
They should have known us.
We're going to call this meeting to order. It's 5:45 according to what I can see on February 12th, 2019. And we're blessed to have Pastor Matt give our invocation.
Let's pray. Our Father, gracious and heavenly Father, merciful and mighty, we laud your wonderful name. Even though our sinful mouths cannot even form it, we only call you the I Am, the God, the great one, Lord. But we pray that we would see your hand move in this meeting and meetings to come in our community. Lord, uphold the heritage of Milton. Tonight, the votes are being cast, Lord, that the heritage, not only the history, but the foundation of faith that is woven into the history of this city. Lord, I thank you for those in attendance lifting up education, and I pray that you would help us to seek knowledge to overcome ignorance and seek love to overcome apathy, and that we would take courage to overcome fear. Lord, that you would instill in the mayor, the council persons, and the managers, attorneys, and support personnel, all the way from the information technology support personnel and administrators to the law enforcement officers. Lord, protect and defend them as they protect and defend us. Lord, we thank you so much for our relationship with the military here in this city. And we pray, Lord, for your protecting hand and your guiding hand over our leaders there, the captain and the colonel, over the field and the fighter wing, Lord. And I pray that flying over us, we would see freedom and the cost of it played out each day where we live. God, I thank you so much for the beauty of where we live. And I pray we preserve it, not just in the physical beauty of it, but in the community, loving one another, being there for one another, open hands and open doors for one another. Lord, that we would take into account our brothers and sisters in every decision that we make, and that we would stand firm for the hope of a future. Lord, I thank you for this council. I thank you for the opportunity to come before it and to invoke the presence of the Holy Spirit by this invocation, because we are formed in a nation, as our first president said, we can only govern righteously if we govern according to your word, Lord. And so we ask for that. We invoke it now tonight. Lord, I pray for all those present to be blessed, especially those that are seeking knowledge to learn how to lead in the future. Lord, I thank you for the Boy Scout that's here to stand firm in scouting as it's going through mighty changes right now, and that you would give them strength to stand for their heritage as well. We ask all of this and all of this blessing, all of this hope, and all of the power that these council people have, Lord, that they assign to you and your Spirit. We ask it in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda for additional items. Do we have any additional items from staff or council?
I have an additional item. I would like for us to pull item 1004 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. And do you want me to explain why now, or do we just?
You don't have to explain why.
Okay, and then second, I would like to add a discussion under council reports about the review of the check register. And then third, I would like to add an information item also under council reports regarding information from the January 24th Board of County Commissioners meeting and discussion.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rice. Do we have any other items from council or staff?
Staff's only item was to pull the same item off consent, so we'll look forward to that conversation.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Hathaway?
Motion.
Sir?
I was just going to make a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes that were described.
Second.
Multiple seconds. Motion from Councilman Powell with a second from Councilwoman Hathaway. I heard first to approve the agenda with the modifications as described. Please vote. Approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2019 meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes, which were distributed to us via email?
Second.
Councilwoman Hawley has moved for approval, second by Councilwoman Johnson. There's no discussion or change or correction to the minutes. Please vote. Unanimously approved. Next item is recognitions, special presentations, and awards. I don't have any on the list for this month. I think we will next month, as we'll soon hear. The next item on the agenda is public hearings or meetings. We don't have any scheduled for tonight. Next item is invited speakers, and Carol Spice of King Middle School, could you please join us at the podium and give us your exciting news and update? Please do. Welcome to the City of Milton.
Thank you. Wow, what an honor. Good evening, City Council, Mayor Lindsay. This is the academic team from King Middle School and our newer coaches this year. I want to tell you a little bit about our journey. We started about 4 years ago just as a little math club, staying after school and practicing for some of the local tournaments when we were told about academic quiz bowls. And there's the NAQT, National Academic Quiz Tournaments, that are up and down the Gulf Coast, all over the state, all over the country. So we signed up and took a small group and did terrible. We didn't know what we were in for. One of our first tournaments, we were -5 to 200 and something. And I was crushed, and I thought the students would be crushed too, but they were not. They just became more determined. And I think the one word I would use to describe this team is perseverance. We've come a long way in the last 3 years, and back in November, competing at Lewis Middle School in Valparaiso, we won a spot for the national championship in Chicago in May.
That's outstanding.
Wow,
that's outstanding.
But they get up early on Saturday mornings and drive hours to go these competitions. And then when we found out we were going to nationals, we started coming up with ideas for fundraisers because we don't want this to be any cost to our students. So they've worked hard. We're planning some more fundraisers, and May 9th through 13th we'll be in Chicago and hopefully showing them some of the sites, some of the beautiful museums, not just competing, but also getting that cultural experience. So I want to thank Ms. Johnson for reaching out, and Mr. Snow and Mr. Jorgensen. Thank you so much for your support and inviting us here. This is such an honor.
Thank you so much for being here, and thanks to everyone who's joined you to greet us. And I hope y'all know that in March we're going to formally recognize your achievement. It's outstanding. Unfortunately, we didn't know about it in time to get something prepared for tonight, but we are so proud of your efforts and your achievements, and we look forward to celebrating you as the months come ahead, both in March and in May. I'm sure we're going to hear another great report.
So when we get back, we'll come back?
Please do. And Councilwoman Johnson, I believe, will be in touch with you too because of the committee, the LEAP committee. Councilwoman Johnson, do you want to speak to that now?
That is correct. I'm so proud of this team. We all are. They've gone very far. I know the school board is helping them out, but they are our friends, our neighbors. You are just across the street, so to speak. And certainly we will be doing other things for you guys. As Mayor said, a formal certificate, and I believe you'll find a little check too. So we will help you out. And I want to thank and recognize Officer Tyndall here that actually brought it to our attention, because you guys were working, I believe, doing the Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, gift wrapping. And he brought it to our attention, and I said, this is a hard-working group of students, and we certainly need to help them out. And we will help you out. And I believe the council would like to take a picture with you guys if you have a few minutes to spare.
Absolutely, thank you. And if I could just thank the parents that are here, because without them, we wouldn't have a team.
Ms.
Absolutely.
Mayor?
I'd also like to invite the parents to come up for this photo.
Can I say a quick thing, Mayor?
And Councilwoman Holly and Councilman Snow would each like to say something, and then we'd like to do the picture.
Ms. Spice, could you please introduce our future leader standing there?
Absolutely. So first, our two, and the earlies came, our two coaches came after we started this year and have just really stepped up to the plate and put us where we are. So Mr. and Mrs. Early. And then
thank you.
Matthew Josephs, Destiny Ard, Amber Lowry, Christina Carpenter, Eli Schatz, and Gabriel Josephs. And just to let you know that Eli Schatz won individual competition in math counts last weekend, and he'll be going to state competition.
Oh, very good.
Wow.
Very good. We're so
Excellent.
proud.
Excellent. Councilman Snow?
You said something when y'all went to your competition, you didn't do very well. So it speaks volumes, especially for our youth today, and even a lot of adults. A lot of times we meet failure, and we think it's over. But you know, I'm extremely proud, like everyone else in this room, that you didn't just lay down and not come back, because that's what life's going to do. And it just speaks volumes of y'all coming back and getting better and better. And I believe that story can be passed on to students down the years. Hey, if you got beat bad, it doesn't matter. You can come back. So hats off to y'all, and congratulations.
Now we'll have our photograph. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I'm so glad y'all came, shared your good news. Ms. Spice is our only invited speaker, but we do have persons to appear. And the first form I received was from Jerry Cooey.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and council and mayor. I come before you tonight as a person who's worked in open government for many years. I'm a believer of the First Amendment foundation of the state of Florida, and every opportunity I have to encourage organizations, elected and appointed folks, to be transparent and stay out in the open for the taxpayers that typically fund them, I do that. I come to you tonight, and I think it's important we go over a little bit of history. The previous the previous attorney for the city of Milton, of course, Ms. Lindsay, recommended that really all nonprofits, but specifically Main Street Milton, follow the Sunshine Law. The second group of attorneys that came in suggested the same thing. But that organization continued to run private meetings, not very open. Now, recently they did say that they were voluntarily going to follow the Sunshine Law. And for the benefit of the council, and I think you've heard it before, but I'm going to say it again. I feel it necessary to say it again. I'll tell you what the District 1 state attorney of our area has to say about it. He says that if a not-for-profit organization stands in the shoes of government, has an agreement with a city or a county government, that's kind of phase 1, and phase 2 is if they receive the majority of their funding, then they would be a Sunshine organization. So when we look at Main Street Milton, we find that they do indeed have an agreement with the city of Milton. They brought that forward, and the council members at the time accepted it, and you all are under that. They most assuredly receive the vast majority of their funding from the taxpayers. Currently, to the best of my knowledge, about 100% of it. The one point that I want to make is it wasn't voluntary. You either follow the Sunshine Law as you're prescribed by the state legislature, or you don't have to follow the Sunshine Law. There's very little gray area in there, and this organization most assuredly follows that. Voluntarily agreeing to it is a misnomer. Other organizations that I have had issue with, Team Santa Rosa, Pensacola Chamber, Florida's Great Northwest, they wanted to say the same thing. The bottom line is they have to follow the Sunshine Law. And I want to encourage the council and the mayor and the attorney that now works for the city of Milton, that those standards be upheld. I've kept rough track of it. I think we're well over $250,000 of taxpayer money that's gone to this organization. I may be off a few dollars. The citizens deserve accountability. The citizens deserve transparency. It shouldn't be something that a group of citizens have to come up here and beg for. And I feel like since we started down this road, that's what the citizens have had to do. And one other point that I want to make is just because you start following the Sunshine Law last week, there's still about 9 months worth of activities that were not held in open. We're not at notice meetings. Although some minutes are coming out, but in all fairness, there were no citizens in the room to verify what actually happened there. I don't call into question anybody's integrity. I'm just saying that the best way so that you don't have questions like this come up is that the citizens are noticed, the media is noticed, and that we have an open door policy all the time. I'm glad that they're following the Sunshine Law now. But I felt it important that I come here today and make the differentiation between voluntary and mandatory, because it is mandatory. There's no reason to be confused about that. I would hope that as elected officials, and I believe a legal person has stood in front of you on multiple occasions and told you that everything you do in the city of Milton is a sunshine issue. It's taxpayer money. If you've heard me speak at all in front of meetings, I encourage you to embrace the Sunshine Law. For a little history of the Sunshine Law, of all the constitutional amendments that's been passed in the state of Florida, the Sunshine Law passed with a 94% approval rating across the state of Florida. That's the highest percentage of any constitutional amendment that's ever been laid forth in front of the citizens of this state. It's important to folks. We've stumbled here, and I just want to encourage this board to understand that there's been some stumbling here, and the citizens deserve better. And going forward, the accountability, I've a little bit of feedback I've gotten so far is the minutes could be a little bit better. I mean, there's still some improvement that needs to be done here. But, you know, I just want to encourage you guys to take the obligation. Your oath of office encourages you to follow the statutes of the state of Florida. And I think this is a very important one, where, you know, you guys make personal decisions about things all the time. Should we allow this? That's one thing. This is not one of those personal decisions. It's the law of the state of Florida. There's been a little bit of improvement. I truly want this improvement to get even better than it is now for the benefit of the taxpayers, because it is their money. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooey, and appreciate your concerns very much. Just to respond to some of those concerns on behalf of the council, I'd like to let you know that Councilman Jordan has been approved to be the ex officio member of the Main Street Board, which I hope will encourage everyone to appreciate that council is providing oversight with respect to the taxpayer dollars. And also, I just wanted to note, you mentioned when I was city attorney an opinion that I gave. I'd just like to clarify that my opinion was not generally that all nonprofits should abide by the sunshine, but that based on the facts, as I understood them with respect to Main Street at that time, that I felt that that particular nonprofit, considering all the facts, should be subject. There was a dispute about that, and it's since been resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have some other forms that have been submitted to me. One was from Ms. Spice, but I believe she's already addressed her comments to us. So the next person on the list for me is Ms. Shari Sebastio. Welcome to the City of Milton.
Good evening. Shari Sebastio, 6751 Cedar Ridge Circle, Milton, Florida. I come again today because of the street paving. We talked about Georgetown paving, the roads and stuff in there. I took another drive by there again to look at the roads, and I look at our list of the list that you guys had the last meeting we looked at. The list had Lake Shore, Lexington Avenue, Laughlin Avenue, Saratoga Avenue, Ticonderoga, New Pond Street, Colonial Drive, Independence Drive, and Queen Street. But when I made that drive through there and I looked around, the streets that weren't listed there were Byram and King, and that's the one that has the cobblestone-like road that is so bad. There's also Plymouth at Byram, Applegate at Byram, Dearborn at Byram. All Applegate, Dearborn, I want to make sure I get all my notes right. All of those are worse than the Colonial Drive, Independence Drive, and Queen Street. They're even worse than the roads in Lake Shore. All of those roads, it's awful. I know that those roads have been there for a while. This has been accumulating for a while, at least 2 years. And I know every single one of the council members campaigned 2 years ago, and then again this year. So those roads, it's not like it's new. It's bad. And like I said, I looked at the ones at Lake Shore and all in there, and those are nowhere near as bad as those roads on Applegate, Plymouth, Byron, and Dearborn. All of those are extremely cobblestone. So I don't know how many of you have actually drove out there and looked at them, but maybe you need to, and then reassess this list, because the ones on that other are nowhere near as bad.
Mayor?
Actually, I was going to ask Mr. Jorgensen to speak to this.
The list that the council has in their possession and that we are advancing during the course of this fiscal year was developed a number of years ago, approximately two and a half. It was a comprehensive evaluation of all of the streets within the community. There are a number of ranking criteria that determined the priority of the streets to be milled and resurfaced. Those criteria were applied, and the rankings and gradings were brought forward to council based on the evaluation that was conducted. That information has been shared with the community now for a like or similar period of time, so that the individuals who reside in the areas that have been identified for work this year are expecting that work to occur in keeping with that schedule. And further, as it relates to the Byram Street area north of Magnolia, that area currently is having a CDBG, a Community Development Block Grant, evaluation conducted under contract to the city by an engineering group who are evaluating the needs and putting together a grant application to do sewer, water, street lighting, curb, gutter, streets, and other potential safety improvements to that part of the community. That will be a comprehensive project that I look for the grant to be about $750,000. So we're cognizant of the fact that that area has needs, but the needs go beyond just the streets. Then the last thing I believe council would like to see happen is us to take action steps to mill and resurface that area of the community, and to come back a year or a year and a half from now and gut the streets we just milled and resurfaced. We'd subject ourselves rightly to criticism from the public. That would be, whose wonderful idea was it to mill and resurface these streets and spend that money to come back and gut them just to do additional work? That would be foolish. And so while we know that there are needs in that area, and we know those needs are great, the comprehensive analysis of that area's needs in the grant application to do the work I described reflects that knowledge.
The grant was what I was hoping Mr. Jorgensen could speak to
and I
address
knew
your
about
concerns.
that too.
But Councilman Snow, did you have something different to add?
Actually, I was going to
Bring up the grant as well?
Well, that, and there's a bigger picture here than just doing the roads. And like, just as Randy explained, I know everybody, I mean, we've come a long way in a couple of years. We've done 25 roads in Milton, which are roughly that.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no...
And those roads need it. I've driven on them.
They're terrible.
Yeah, they are. But I'd rather wait a year and a half and get such a better product with sidewalks, the sewer line, or all the stormwater runoff, everything the way it needs to be. And I believe the county's coming north of that to their little part and tying into that also, correct?
Who's doing the grant? Who is completing the application for the grant?
Right now, the engineering's being conducted. We will issue an RFQ for administrative services for the grant.
Okay. Is there anything that the citizens can do to help progress this?
No, the timelines for that program are such that our work is done in keeping with those timelines. You can't speed up the timelines established by the state for the use of federal proceeds on a competitive basis in a program that they administer. We adhere to and meet their timeline.
Okay. Thank you.
So just so everyone's clear, what with that grant and everything that is coming on top of, instead of just getting repaved, I mean, having the new sidewalks in there.
I just
think
want to
new
make
lighting
sure.
also, correct? I mean, I think
I'm sorry. I think what I want to do is just make sure that, like when I looked at this list, that those streets were not on that list. And again, I went and looked at the ones that were on the list. So
Yes,
that's why
ma'am.
I want to make sure that those other streets, Applegate, that they get that love too. It's not just that.
they're actually going to get some extra love.
Yeah, we were not
So
overlooking them.
That's just kind of a
That's
separate deal.
Just
So,
making sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that concern, and I
Thank you.
hope you understand that there is a plan for them. Just wasn't in that same project. All right, the next person on our list is Mr. Bruton.
Al Bruton, 6033 Breckenridge Drive. I've noticed of late that the Historical Preservation Board has come up with a procedure for local heritage sites. And in that memo, Mary Street has been designated to be a local historical site. I am appealing to the council or whatever, or the historical board, that at the corner of Mary Street and West Walker Street, many, many years ago, a black school called J.B. Turner. I would like to, the historical board or the city, to maybe look at mounting some kind of plaque or something right there at that corner. You've got duplexes right there on the corner, so I'm saying at the corner there, that would be a very historical site moving forward in the black community. And since everybody is all up in gears and now and wanting to designate some local historical sites, I would like to put that one on the list of ones to be added to the list.
Mayor?
Councilman Snow?
Yeah, I brought that up to Randy in our last meeting on that, and to go ahead and start researching that. So definitely on board with what you're calling for today.
If I could, Councilman Mayor, we're going to refer the item to the Historic Preservation Board, and they'll take it up.
Right.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Johnson, did you have something to add?
That's true. J.B. Turner actually is on the corner of Mary Street and Walker Street, I believe. So it would have been, I believe, I'm not speaking for the Preservation Board, but I'm sure that they know about it, so it would be included as that marker is there.
And that's why Mary Street was nominated.
No,
probably.
it's a lot of historic sites that existed on Mary Street. From that end all the way up to Old Berry Hill School.
Okay.
Many sites.
But I would like to see specifically some kind of plaque or monument or something recognizing, J.B. Turner.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Bruton. And we'll make sure this goes to the Historic Preservation Board for consideration.
Yes. You'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruton. I don't have any other people listed as having requested to speak. Are there others who would like to speak to council this evening about an item not on the agenda? Moving on then to the general consent agenda. But for the item 1004 that's been removed from the general consent agenda and put back on our regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second. I heard a motion from Councilman Powell and a second from Councilwoman Hathaway to approve the items, or was it Councilman Snow? Councilman Snow made the motion, Councilwoman Hathaway seconded, and the motion is to approve the items on the general consent agenda, which were previously discussed and voted on last week, but for item 1004, which will be separately taken up. If there's no discussion or question, please vote. Unanimously approved. Next is item 11, the ordinances, resolutions, and proclamations. Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, Mayor. We have a proposed ordinance which is here for the council's first reading, ordinance number 1485-19, an ordinance to establish local heritage sites in the city of Milton and to establish nomination and application process.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Powell, second by Councilman Snow. There are no questions or discussion. Please vote. Unanimously approved at first reading.
And that should come before the council on second reading next time.
I see a couple of resolutions on the list.
There are. Resolution number 1456-19, resolution to support the planning, design, and construction of the Milton Multimodal Connector, Phase 1, with transportation alternative set aside funding.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Holly, second by Councilman Powell to approve City of Milton Resolution number 1456-19. There are no questions or discussion. Please vote. Unanimously approved.
We also have, Madam Mayor, resolution number 1457-19, resolution to recognize a local neighborhood as a local heritage site in the city of Milton. Multiple property site is recognized as the Mary Street Local Heritage District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Powell, second by Councilwoman Johnson to approve City of Milton Resolution 1457-19. There's no question or discussion. Please vote. Unanimously approved.
Next, Madam Mayor, is resolution number 1458-19, a resolution to recognize Kaiser Cemetery as a local heritage site in the city of Milton.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Powell, second by, I'll say Councilman Snow. I think he spoke before you, Councilwoman Johnson, but you were right there. If there's no question or discussion, please vote. Oh, yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Holly?
This is for Mr. Jorgensen. Is the planning department still trying to work on putting the Kaiser Cemetery on the National Register?
The planning department is working with the Historic Preservation Board and has provided them with information that forms the basis for the eligibility of Kaiser Cemetery for the national recognition, and will move forward with a recommendation to council following that work.
Thank you.
So, are we ready for this to be voted on then? 1458-19. Only vote not locked is Sharon's. Okay. All right. Approved. Next, resolution number 1459-19.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have a budget amendment resolution comprising two items, amending the fiscal year 2019 budget, changing estimated total revenues and expenditures of various funds, and providing for an effective date. The two items in question would reallocate from capital projects contingency $220,000 to capital outlay on the festival area improvement, and similarly, a reallocation of $81,500 on the cost of professional engineering services, estimated cost of construction for expansion of the police department building.
So moved.
Second. I just need to correct something here. Under Capital Projects Fund, the $220,000, there's not a comma there, that's a period, and we just need to note that it's $220,000.
Subpart A is $220,000. Subpart B is $81,500.
And if I may, for the councilwoman's satisfaction, if you actually look at the resolution, it is properly noted as a comma. This is simply an artifact of the agenda.
Thank you.
Noting that the resolution has the correct numbers, we had a motion from Councilwoman Johnson and a second by Councilwoman Smith. There's no further discussion or question. Please vote. Councilman Snow? Thank you. Resolution unanimously approved. Mr. City Attorney, your report, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, at the City Executive Council or Executive Committee meeting, we were tasked to respond to three questions and I have provided a written memorandum to council, the city manager, regarding the answers to those questions, both in summary and in some detail with regard to the questions asked. I would note preliminarily that, well, I'll get to that when I get to that specific item. The first question was, and I framed the issue as requested by the council, was whether and to what scope city clerk's duties may include gathering and record keeping of the CRA 1 funding expenditures, particularly as they relate to Main Street Milton. And after review of the relevant statutes, both Chapter 617 governing nonprofit questions and the clerk's duties as set forth in the code, and looking at relevant statutes that might possibly apply in those regards, I found very little in terms of the delineation of the city clerk's duties in this regard, nothing that pertains specifically to CRA funding. City clerk's duties are very narrowly defined in the city charter. The remainder of the clerk's duties are to be established by ordinance. There are a number of ad hoc record-keeping responsibilities in the code, some of them more extensive than others, the most extensive of which would be the investment plan that the city clerk manages on behalf of the city. But there is no specific legal duty with regard to record keeping in terms of the scope of records to be gathered or kept, or in any particular manner that they be kept that pertain to the city clerk's legal duties. Now, having said that, it's clear the city clerk does have a number of very broad-ranging record functions in the city. It appears from what we are able to gather that those are customary expectations and administrative taskings that may have been given by council from time to time, but they have not, as far as I can determine, established by ordinance legal duties that pertain to CRA record keeping for the clerk. Second issue was whether City Council or other authoritative policies presently govern the Main Street Milton Board of Directors' conflict of interest in regards to grants and expenditures within the limits of the law. And the answer is to that question is yes, they do. They have the required registration with the Department of Agriculture for their compliance with Chapter 496, which governs organizations that solicit funds from the public. It is primarily a consumer protection statute, and so therefore they're required to have registration with the department for purpose. However, as I believe it was discussed earlier, the great majority of funding that Main Street Milton handles is the monies of the city in regard to the CRA development programs. And in regards to that, we also look to Chapter 617 for nonprofits' conflicts of interest. And what we find is in both settings that 496 provides no affirmative conflicts policy. Chapter 617 does provide for conflicts policy, but the Main Street Milton bylaws, which we did review, are broader in scope. They encompass officers as well as directors, which is broader than the requirement under Chapter 617. And they are also more stringent in that Chapter 617 merely requires that any conflicts of interest be disclosed to the other members of the board of directors, and that notwithstanding that conflict, that a majority of the non-interested directors approve or ratify any interested decision that board may make with regard to that particular board member. The Main Street Milton bylaws go much beyond that. They say that not only does a member have to disclose, but also that member may not participate, vote, or discuss the decision in question as to which they may have a conflict. So both in terms of the reach of the conflicts policy under Main Street Milton, as well as the stringency of its requirements, they well exceed the requirements of law as far as those governing conflicts. Lastly, the question was also asked whether or not decision on certain grants that involve potentially interested directors of the Main Street Milton were conducted in accordance with those conflict policies. And after reviewing some illustrative, and I'm going to characterize them that way because we have not done a detailed factual investigation. I don't believe we were tasked to determine all of the particulars of every decision that might be questioned. But we understood three basic situations to have occurred, one involving an officer, the others involving directors. and property owners in the district. And we found in each of those cases that the members involved had recused, and under the relevant standard, that recusal more than satisfies the requirements of 617, and therefore we found there to be no problem with those 3 illustrative cases. I don't know. I haven't been asked to look at any other specific instances or exemplary situations that we could give an opinion on, but as to those 3 that we were advised about, there appears to be no problem with those because of the recusal.
Councilwoman Holly?
Oh, I forgot. Sure.
Don't hurt your shoulder.
Thank you, Attorney Mead. I would like to address back on the first subject matter that you researched. On the City of Milton's website, is there any way that we can go to that right now, Randy? Can we do that so that everybody can see? There was a interlocal agreement between Santa Rosa County Board of Commissioners and the Milton CRA 2 and 3 / City of Milton, dated July 7th, 2016. And it's on the website. You can go to government. You can go down and click CRA 2 and 3. Should be in there. Go back. Mine at home had 2 and 3 together.
The locals under 3?
Yes, ma'am. And I have it in my hand. I printed it off the City of Milton's website, and while they're trying to find that, if I may.
We don't have it up for us. Can you read from the relevant portion?
Yes, ma'am, I can, please.
Great, please do.
This is an interlocal agreement between Santa Rosa County, Florida and the City of Milton, Florida relating to establishment of a community redevelopment trust fund, providing for the administration of the community redevelopment trust fund, establishing the base year for determining assessed values of property in the community redevelopment area for tax increment purposes, providing for annual appropriation of the tax increment by taxing authorities in the community redevelopment area, and providing an effective date. Says, whereas a resolution number 1341-15 was approved by City Council on the 11th day of August 2015, it was determined that one or more blighted areas exist within the city limits of Milton, and that the rehabilitation, conservation, or redevelopment, or combination thereof of such areas is necessary in the interest of the public health, safety, morals, or welfare of the residents of the city, and so forth and so on. And it talks about, I'll go to the page, on page 4, section 9, it talks about, all through the agreement, it states that the City of Milton is the trustees over the CRA monies. And in section 9, it says the city clerk or his or her designee, and if Ms. Nobles will remember last week, I asked if she had designated anyone to be the designee over the CRA monies, and I was told no. But section 9 states, and there's 2 sections here that I feel are very important to the subject matter, and the section 9 reads, the city clerk or his or her designee of the City of Milton, Florida, the trustee, on behalf of the City and Redevelopment Agency, shall be the trustee of the trust fund and shall be responsible for receipt, custody, disbursement, accountability, management, investment, and proper application of all monies paid into or expended from the trust fund in accordance with the Redevelopment Agency authorization and with state and local laws. Disbursement of money shall be made upon presentation of adequate supporting documentation in the reasonable opinion of the trustee. And that would be the City of Milton's redevelopment agency, which is City Council. Section 10 says the redevelopment agency shall provide for an independent financial audit of the trust fund each fiscal year and a report of such audit pursuant to Section 163.387 of the Florida statutes. Such report shall describe the amount and the source of deposits into the amount and purpose of withdrawals from the trust fund during such fiscal year and the amount of principal and interest paid during such year on any indebtedness to which is pledged, increment revenues, and remitting amount of such indebtedness. The redevelopment agency shall provide a copy of the audit report to each taxing authority. And with that information, I also found Florida statute in 163 says each community redevelopment agency shall provide for an audit of the trust fund each fiscal year and a report of such audit to be prepared by an independent certified public accountant or firm. Such report shall describe the amount and sources of deposits into and the amount and purpose of withdrawals from the trust fund during such fiscal year and the amount of principal and interest paid during such year on any indebtedness to which increment revenues are pledged and the remaining amount of such indebtedness. The agency shall provide by registered mail a copy of the report to each taxing authority. So with that being said, it would be to my understanding that the City of Milton is responsible, in fact, of every expense that is taken from the CRA dollars to be accounted for.
I think I hear your concerns, Councilwoman Holly, as asking whether the City of Milton's in compliance with the interlocal based on.
Yes, and if you will read my letter, the question that was asked at the Executive Committee was focusing on Main Street Milton, which is CRA 1, not CRA 2 or 3. CRA 2 and 3 are later in evolution. CRA 1 is an older CRA, which, as many of the older versions of CRAs, are not in the same level of detail. Having said that, the letter does address that there are administrative taskings of the clerk that are certainly in existence. This would be one of them. This is an interlocal agreement. It's not an ordinance. And therefore, under those standards, clearly the clerk has those duties. But they are not legal duties. They are administrative duties, as I addressed in the letter. If you wish to make them legal duties, there needs to be an ordinance pursuant to the charter in order for that to be the case. I'm not disputing that those taskings have been given and that they should be ordinarily complied with, certainly. But my question, or the question directed to me, was what are the legal duties? And that was what we answered.
Yes, sir.
And in this regard, only with regard to CRA 1, not regard to CRA 2 and 3.
So we're saying that we're not giving Main Street Milton any CRA 2, 3 money?
We are giving Main Street Milton CRA 1 money. To the best of my knowledge, we are not giving Main Street Milton CRA 2 or 3 money because essentially CRA 2 and 3 money is non-existent. Then beyond that, as it relates to the use of the CRA proceeds, the city is following the direction that has been provided by council and in keeping with the memorandum of understanding between the city and Main Street Milton. The clerk is following that direction. Once the funds are received by Main Street, they are subject to governance by that board of directors of a nonprofit organization over which we do not have legal oversight. They're separate and distinct. Then, as it relates to the annual audit, the CRA expenditures are a part of our audit on an annual basis. And that is what the auditors are evaluating, is whether or not we have followed the direction provided by council for the use of the CRA proceeds. And I believe that you would find that we have done just that. Once they're on the receipt of Main Street, they become part and parcel to that organization. And to that end, I would say that each and every expenditure that has been made by Main Street for the use of the funds provided by the City of Milton are tracked extensively and accounted for, if I'm not incorrect, to the penny monthly. And all of those are available for your review upon request, or anybody else's for that matter. I think if you look at that chain of custody of those proceeds, all of it can be examined in detail. All of it are available to anyone who would request. Our audit is conducted, including the CRAs, and I think that the clerk has met her responsibilities.
It was not really questioning the clerk's responsibilities. I was just wanting to make sure that we were following the letter of the law. So in your statement that you just said, Randy, Mr. Jorgensen, you said that there are no CRA 2 or 3 monies. You said they were distinct.
Well, they are distinct, and they are minimal. The funds from the 2 new CRAs, I believe CRA 2 has generated a nominal amount of revenue. If I recall correctly, it may be $7,000. The clerk could probably provide that information. And CRA 3, I don't think has seen any positive increase in values, so there would be no increment captured.
So is there another interlocal agreement for the CRA 1, since we have one for 2 and 3?
There is, as it relates to the reestablishment and extension of CRA 1. When that extension occurred, and if I recall correctly, that was approximately 2012.
Could we have a copy of that, because that's not on the website?
I'd be happy to provide that to council.
And I would also like to, we may need to discuss, because I continue to hear we can't do this or we can't do that because it's in the memorandum of agreement between the City of Milton and Main Street Milton. You know, we are sitting here as the gatekeepers for the taxpayers' money, and I feel it's very inappropriate to say that we can't take control over the taxpayers' money because of an agreement. If that's the deal, where they tell us what they're going to do with the monies, then maybe we need to look at that agreement again.
Councilor, well, let me touch on that. I have not been tasked to do an analysis of the memorandum of understanding or its legal consequences. So, with all due caution, take this for what it is worth. The overall structure, however, and this comes to the point of some of the questions about sunshine, which I've also not been asked to analyze, but in essence, this is very similar to the situation addressed in the state attorney's opinion letter back in 2014, where you have a private or private-public entity that is exercising development activities which are a municipal function using public funds, and it is in essence a form of agent of the city for those purposes. And so in the general oversight and supervision of the city, but that general supervision is governed by whatever tasking the city has given, which has legal consequence, in this case a form of a memorandum of understanding. In order for things to change, the memorandum of understanding has to be changed to give that effect.
Yes, sir. We could sit down and give a 30-day notice that we're going to change that memorandum of agreement. Well, we not?
Mr. Jorgensen?
Yeah, my comment, Mayor, would be that the memorandum of understanding is revisited annually during the budget process.
I believe we've also already discussed the memorandum of understanding being reviewed to update it according to the legal opinion that was given recently about it being conformance with the sunshine, and there may be other things too that could be discussed to improve the agreement's language so that the duties of each are understood. Is that true, Mr. Jorgensen, that you and
it
Mr.
is,
Spears
and I
about
think
that?
you know, we can task council with the responsibility of reviewing it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Although the memorandum clearly indicates that it is to be revisited on an annual basis during that budget process.
Councilman Powell, did you have a comment?
My only comment is I understand the concerns, and I definitely think we should always take opportunities to revisit and make sure that we're doing things as effectively as possible. But the biggest concern that I have is, so far, everything that we've asked for as a council has been provided. Everything has been shown and recorded. I'm just not really sure where the breakdown and where there's a problem, because everything that we've asked for, they provided. They've been able to show everywhere that they've spent the money. And we continue to ask them, and we continue to research this, and I'm just not understanding. Is the problem just that you don't want to be part of the group, that you don't want to support them? Because if that's the problem, that's fine, but I'm not understanding. We haven't one single time found an issue that actually came to fruition once it's been discussed. So I'm just confused, I guess, why we keep revisiting and keep hounding something that has been working, been positive, and there's not been any reproach that has been found at this point. So I'm confused a little bit as to the attitude that I observed from the public and from some parties on this board.
Councilman Powell, I appreciate your remarks. From what I can put together based on what people have shared with me and from my interpretation of Councilwoman Holly's remarks, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we know in the past there was a dispute with the Main Street Board as to what legal compliance.
Since we've been a party of it now, there's been a dispute.
Sir?
Since we've actually made this memorandum of agreement, we've had a dispute with them about something?
The dispute did occur, didn't it? Because March of 2018, there was a memorandum of agreement.
No, I'm saying the memorandum of agreement that we've had an issue since then?
There's been a question as to what law applies, and that question was recently resolved.
By whom? Where was the question from is my question, because I've heard a lot of questions from the public. I haven't heard a lot of question that was based on factual review of this board. So that's my question.
Okay, so if I may remind you, Councilman Powell, I suggested when I was in the role of city attorney what law would apply to Main Street Milton as a board based on the public-private partnership and the law that was cited by Mr. Meade. And people in the public asked why that wasn't going to be applied. The memorandum of agreement itself said that they would not be subject to sunshine, so they took the position that they were not subject to it. Your attorney took the position they should be. Later, over the summer of 2018, a member of the Gray Robinson firm, I believe, pointed out to this council that they should be subject to it. Yet still, the memorandum of agreement was not updated. And now we've recently received yet another opinion that they should be subject to it. So the memorandum of agreement is properly updated just for that point alone. Right. Whether it needs to be updated in any other way to ensure that communication is transparent, that's something that can be further reviewed by Mr. Jorgensen and Mr. Spears and then presented to council. I
understand that, but in my discussion with the city manager and with staff, I haven't found one single instance where they've had an issue with transparency. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. I would like to know where this transparency issue is coming from on this council. I understand we've got some public views out there, and I appreciate that, but I'm trying to figure out where we stand as a council and why we keep asking the same question and getting the same answer.
Well, I think it's appropriate for us to make sure that the law is being followed.
I absolutely agree with you.
And I remember that you made the motion as well to make sure these questions were evaluated. So they've been evaluated. So if there's no additional question to be evaluated at this time, it seems that the next best step is for Mr. Jorgensen and Mr. Spears to review the memorandum of agreement to see whether it should be updated.
And will council have the opportunity to review? And
council would certainly be reviewing that because it could not be signed without council's approval, correct?
That's true.
Correct.
And I would concur that if the memorandum of agreement is drafted in such form, it needs to be updated to address the question. What I will say, and again, I have not done any investigation into Main Street Milton's other activities with regard to things outside of its handling of city CRA funding. But there are situations in which nonprofits operate in two different modes. So not everything that they do unless it involves the handling of public money and public functions, is necessarily subject to sunshine. And those sorts of nuances need to be adequately identified so that the public and the council members all understand what is and what is not subject to sunshine when Main Street Milton is acting. Clearly, public monies or public functions are going to be covered, and that is a consistent point. All the attorneys, I think, have dealt with this issue for the board have come to. But we need to have conformity between the agreement and what the law is.
Thank you, Mr. Mead,
Mayor.
for providing that opinion. Councilman Snow?
I'd like to reiterate exactly what Councilman Powell stated. Main Street and when Main Street was, when this partnership began, I believe a lot of things have changed since the beginning, which is requiring or making it more effective for us to be under the sunshine, or for that group to be under the sunshine law. And I'm with you, Councilman Powell. The negativity brought by some of the council members on here is more of a, I believe, is a more of a personal vendetta against the people that they don't get along with, and that's unfortunate because Main Street Milton has been nothing but transparent to everyone. Anyone that's wanted anything, they can get it, and there's nothing. So the program works. It works well. Will we always have room to improve this situation and any situation? Always, and I'm always for that. But just to negatively go after a group because you don't like certain people, it gets old. It keeps our city staff from achieving and moving on to different things that they need to do, and it's wearing, you know. Let's move on. If our program was so bad, the county wouldn't have just basically mirrored our facade improvement plan.
I think Councilman Powell has a brief response, and then Mr. Cooey.
Yeah, my only response is I'm not talking to anything personal here. I'm fine with people having personal questions. There's no problem with that. My question was based off of the facts of what we've received. That's all. If you have a personal issue, any one of us, that's our prerogative to have a personal question and to ask it. I have no problem with that, and I don't want that to come across as being what I'm saying. I'm not. I'm just saying based on the facts of all the things that we have asked for and received and been able to prove and provide to the public, every question that's been asked, we've been able to give them the answer. They've been able to answer us to the satisfaction of our city manager. That's my question. That's it. I think, yeah, we should always evaluate. We should find better ways to approach things if there needs to be a better way. But if there's a problem with the validity of the information that we've received, I haven't seen it yet. So that's my question. Everything that we've gotten back has been transparent, been proven, and we can show what we're doing with our money and what the money's went to. There hasn't been a problem with that at this point. If there's something we need to address, I'm all for it. I did make the motion to have the city attorney review it, absolutely, because I believe that everything should be above board. And if there's a question, we should look at it. I'm just not sure what the question actually is at this point, and I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. Councilwoman Holly, can we let Mr. Cooey speak?
By all means.
And maybe I can clear it up for you a little bit. We've had several opinions that we all agree that they should have followed the Sunshine Law. I think that everybody agrees with that. So you stand up an organization and they haven't followed the Sunshine Law until now. One thing that I have found in my work in these kind of things is a city council member or a county commissioner gets all the answers they want. The citizen that's paying for it sometimes doesn't get all the answers they want. And be fair, I think you'll agree with that. Any member of this city council ask a question, I think more than likely you get an answer to that.
I would hope so, but I personally haven't asked them any questions. I've done everything through the staff the way it's supposed to be.
Right, and I can appreciate all that. However, as has been pointed out, we have gone 10 months that we haven't had an open meeting. Okay. We've gone 10 months that we haven't had minutes available. Okay, and that in itself poses a problem. I give speeches on a regular basis. There's perception and there's reality. Okay? Perception always wins when there's not a reality. Okay? What I see as an outside person watching this is we all knew a year ago that they should have followed the Sunshine Law. You had 2 different legal opinions that said they should have followed the Sunshine Law, yet they didn't follow the Sunshine Law. So the perception is there's some reason you don't want to follow the Sunshine Law. In the conflict discussion, and I appreciate what the current city attorney had to say, but sometimes you have the question is important. So here's a question. May a sitting board member, elected or appointed, enrich themselves based on intimate knowledge that the average citizen doesn't have? Okay, because you had meetings where it was a handful of people in there. Was there an enrichment? I'm asking the question. I'm not pointing a finger. I'm asking a question. Was there enrichment by a sitting board member? The point of recusal, although made, although it's so noted, the public wasn't there. The press wasn't there. We're right back to perception again. I'm not picking on anybody here. Yeah. I'm really not. But the perception is a group of people went in a room, and when they came out, grant money was handed out.
Well, I appreciate your perception, and I absolutely want to make sure that we have the right perception. But unfortunately, if we want to talk about perception, the last time I saw you in this council meeting was to have the problem with the same kind of issue. You didn't want to be involved with Main Street. So my perception is that you don't want this program to work in our city.
Well, rather than
that's just my perception.
Let me address that. The reason that I had concerns about it is exactly what has happened for the last year.
And we're not going to debate personally. Excuse me, sirs. We're not going to debate personally. Y'all can take this up between yourselves after the meeting.
We can. The question that I ask, I think needs to be answered. Can a board member with intimate knowledge that the citizens don't have access to, elected or appointed, can they enrich themselves personally or their family members? Remember, it's important the question you ask. And I think the city attorney, and I hope you guys are listening to me, I think...
We have, and I believe he's already answered that question.
Mr. Cooey, if I may, so that we don't continue to debate this among each other here.
I have a comment to make.
Mr. Councilman Snow, I appreciate you have a comment, but I would like for us to avoid having a full-fledged debate over this question.
How do some council members get to speak and some don't?
I believe you and Councilman Snow have spoken far more than Councilwoman Holly. She was waiting patiently for Councilman.
This is getting to be a pattern again, the bias.
May I please be heard? Now, Mr. Cooey, I'd like to reassure you that your concerns have been on our radar for some time. Main Street has been responsive to our requests and our concerns. Councilman Jordan is going to be our ex officio member. And the perception that you're talking about is a perception that everyone is concerned about, including Main Street, and they want to overcome it. So that's why we are having full discussions with them through staff. Mr. Spears and Mr. Jorgensen have talked at length. Councilman Powell has been concerned, has made the motions to ask for these legal opinions. Councilman Snow has been concerned. Councilwoman Holly's been concerned. All of us have been concerned. And at various meetings, each one of them have made various comments. And those remarks have been taken seriously by staff, by Main Street, and by Mr. Mead, as far as I can see. We do have some work to do to improve that perception, and we are committed to doing that. But it really, from my perspective, I don't think it helps for all of y'all to have a personal debate about motivations. The point is that we want to have a successful Main Street program. And to do that, we want to work together in a productive way to achieve the transparency that the people want and to achieve the positive perceptions that, show the true motivations of the people who want to help Milton. To your point about documents, if you have a document request as to any record that is a public record, you may make it to the city clerk. Mr. Spears will make sure she has that record, if she doesn't already, to produce to you according to our public records policy. Councilman Snow and Councilman Powell and Councilwoman Hawley all have comments to make. Do you have anything else to share, Mr. Cooey?
One final thing, if you would take the time to discuss what a cure meeting is. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir. If they have to have a cure meeting because they had a meeting outside the sunshine when they should have had it in the sunshine.
Right.
And that is something that they will take up at the appropriate time if they need to do so. Resolving that question tonight, I don't think is on our radar.
I simply want to put it out there because of the gap in following the Sunshine Law.
Yes, sir.
It is a method by which a lot of perceptions can be cleared up. That's all I'm saying.
I hear what you're saying, and what I would suggest then is if council would like to take up that question at a committee of the whole in the future, they may then decide to direct that these cure meetings occur. But that's a discussion that they should be able to have at a committee of the whole.
Absolutely. I'm just putting it out there so that the council will have heard it and understand it is a part of the process which has been used many times in the state of Florida to cure questions such as are here. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Hawley has waited for Mr. Cooey, and then Councilman Snow and Councilman Powell.
The reason that this was all brought up was last week in reference to the audit, and we had discussed about just having an independent audit done by our CPA in the city to ensure that all these questions can be answered, that they are balancing, the checks and balances are there. So that's where all this was coming from. It wasn't coming from, oh, Councilwoman Hawley just hates Main Street. Well, no. It's not that. Just want to make sure that we're following the letter of the law and that they are accountable for the funding that the city is providing to them.
The CRA is audited as a part of the city's audit. And in my discussions with the auditors of recent, we have asked that they look at auditing Main Street as a separate entity. And we're still carrying out those conversations. If the council would like, we could incorporate that into our RFQ for auditing services on an annual basis, and we'll follow that direction following discussion with the council at the committee of the whole on this subject.
Thank you for reminding us that that came up last week, that the audit could be expanded, and that will be discussed at committee of the whole for February.
I asked for that like 2 months ago for it to be put on the committee of the whole, and it never was. So let's just make sure it's on there this month.
And it will be. Okay. Councilman Powell, do you have anything else to add? Councilman Snow.
I know Main Street's the topic now. I'd like our citizens and anyone else that would like to know, we take doing things correct on all aspects that we do. I know everyone on this council, including you, Mayor, our staff, work very hard to make sure everything is followed the way it needs to be. It's okay to question, and that's fine. But going back to Main Street, Mr. Cooey, back in your previous visit before, and I know you've been you had a lot of questions against Main Street. Have you bothered to go down and meet with those guys or set up a meeting? I'm sure they'd be glad to. There's been not just you, but several people that I see that have, and like Councilman Powell says, questions are fine, especially legit. But I had a couple of people contact me online questioning. Offered them to come here. We've had workshops, so all the citizens know we've had numerous workshops explaining Main Street program, and Ed and Stephen are available at any time for any records to be pulled. A lot of people say they're not being transparent. That is not the case. They've been more transparent than they even have to be, and that's always available to you and anyone else. And so I ask you, if you have any more concerns about it, please meet with these guys.
And I'll make this it. Here's the bottom line with me. when an organization decides, and when I say organization, I'm talking about the city council. You have a legal obligation for that organization using taxpayer money with a signed agreement with the city of Milton to follow the Sunshine Law. Period. End of story. There's no discussion in this. I am not going to waste my time. This is not the first time that I've dealt with organizations such as this. I know exactly how the game works. You know, that's fine for you to tell me I can get anything I want.
Well,
you know what I want? Well, let me finish.
I'll let you.
Here's what I want. I want them to follow the law.
And they do.
No, they just started following the law. When they follow the law all the time, we'll have.
They were not required in the beginning.
Yes, they were.
Well, that's your opinion. Just one quick
It's not an
but
opinion.
My statement
it's a
about
state
going
of Florida
down. You
opinion.
had other complaints, not just you weren't even mentioning Hardly Sunshine back then. You had other complaints about financial issues. Those books are open for you and anyone else that would like to come see them. And that was months ago. So I was hoping you'd already been down there, but apparently you haven't.
When they're fully compliant with the law.
Okay. Is that when you say it is, or when the...
no, that's when the state of Florida says it is.
If you find any undoing, like I've explained some other people, please report it to the proper authorities.
Mr. Cooey, if there's anything you need from Main Street Milton, it's probably going to be a public record. So just ask Ms. DeWitt for it.
I will. Thank you.
All right. And to speak to your comments, Councilman Snow, we have to be open as elected officials to being scrutinized. That's our job. And so when the public comes up and has questions for us, we are going to have to welcome those questions. And that includes an organization such as Main Street, which has been fully funded with taxpayer dollars. And that's why Main Street's executive director, Mr. Spears, has been cooperating with Mr. Jorgensen to ensure that we can rebuild trust with the community so that folks who do not trust Main Street can learn that things can change and that their trust can be earned again. And so that's why I believe Councilwoman Holly was trying to help in that effort, as Councilman Jordan is going to help in that effort by being an ex officio member. And I'm sure all of us can be productive helpers in that effort so that we can move forward in a positive way.
Quick statement, Mayor.
Councilman Snow,
yes,
what more could there be said at this point?
The perception of Main Street has been working extremely well, doing great strides in our community, and we need to continue that, and we need to always keep oversight over them and any other organization that we need to. So that is going. There's so many people that are happy with it, far more than the few that aren't happy with it. Thank you.
I'm glad that that's the feedback you're getting, Councilman Snow. Let's move on.
Definitely.
Please.
Councilman Powell, did you have anything else to add?
I have something. Could I?
Councilwoman Rice, please.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to circle back to, it was brought up that there may be a perception that Councilwoman Holly has issue with Main Street Milton. And I just want you to know I felt that too. By the multiple requests for information from Main Street Milton that far exceeds their agreement with the city as far as reporting. And then that was kind of confirmed more in the last meeting when Councilman Powell suggested that maybe she be the ex officio member to try to bridge the gap. And she may have been joking, but it was very clear that she had no interest in having anything to do with Main Street Milton. And I think that is a bad perception to send to the city.
Councilwoman Rice, I'm sure Councilwoman Holly will take your comments under advisement. At this time, at any time, I would caution each one of you as council members to avoid personal attacks to one another up here.
I was quoting from the meeting.
Yes, ma'am, and as you may recall, Councilman Powell made the motion to appoint Councilwoman Holly, and it was something that they discussed. And
on the record.
Yes, ma'am, it was. And Councilwoman Holly said she would not be a good fit. And the discussion should have ended with that.
But it didn't.
And is that partly because you want to bring it up now for further discussion?
No, I brought it up now to point out that her perception is the same. She's put it out there that there's something wrong with Main Street Milton. And if you don't want these discussions to go on between other council members, then let you and I not have these discussions either.
Oh, my God.
What I would like for all of us to do is to move forward in a positive manner with Main Street. Part of that process is going to involve their being under scrutiny. They've welcomed the scrutiny, and we're moving forward with that scrutiny. And that's what we need to focus on. If Councilwoman Holly has a request for the city attorney, if Councilman Powell has a request for the city attorney, and this board, by a majority vote, directs the city attorney to follow up on that, then there is nothing about that that would
That's
prove
not what I brought up.
a personal attack against Main Street.
That's not what I brought up.
The comment that was made last meeting about who should be the ex officio member is your remark, and I've already... Would you like Councilwoman Holly to comment back to you now about
Not necessary. It's on the record.
Okay. Is there anything further you want to state about that?
You don't want me to comment.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead and comment, Ms. Holly.
I'm gonna.
Councilwoman Johnson, do you have a remark?
I would request that we move forward the agenda.
Thank you.
I would like to do that as well.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes,
it's
sir.
been about an hour and 45 minutes at this point. Could we have 5 minutes?
Yes, sir. 5-minute break. It was wise thinking. Hey, Hazel.
Which kid? Yeah, they all.
You need to
left.
leave.
They're
You
all
don't
good.
need to be sitting through this whole
Yeah,
meeting.
they decided.
I'm so glad to see
well,
you. Y'all
I
need to
think
go get
one
your
or two
dad.
of them are left, but yeah,
Take
they
care of
both
yourself.
rode together. They just
No, go
went
ahead.
home a minute ago.
Please.
I just
Yeah,
wanted
y'all
to
didn't
get
have
this stuff out of
a
Ricky's.
meeting. Happy to.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, she's from the funeral however long ago that was.
Yeah. That's
Like,
great.
maybe you could have just kept that.
Thank you.
I didn't expect to
Let's do it.
send like nannies to China.
Okay.
No, that's not.
Your kid okay?
I was. By the way, I'm a charter board member, and I was like, it's Margaret. Don't y'all get up. I know how fast you can clear this table.
it's emotional, it's juvenile, it's unprofessional. I don't want that tone.
Well, no. I'm gonna mark it up. There are also other points that you need to consider.
Like I said, there's some things on there that list as making it uninhabitable. It's not. I would hate for that owner to be in the middle of a sale and us out, and that causes failure.
Well, and I understand those considerations, but us to look into sending something else to.
Right. No, I appreciate that.
Russian is how long does it take?
Well, it's because
tell me how you like it.
It's not a letter to read something because public. Oh, right, no, right.
Other issues. Broader than merely this. But I need to look into that. Home use starting.
Okay, and Sessions Park is not in the city.
I understand that, but nuisance law is not bound by jurisdictional law. Because under Chapter 60, two different enforcement authority under and there's enforcement authority under 60. Under 60, scope is as defined. How far we can go with that letter. They've been talked to, so they haven't done
Have they been talked to? I mean, that says have they. What that letter
What's been spoken about here.
Right. But there's nothing preventing me from following up on that.
As far as what?
I don't.
You can talk to anything.
So we might be able to just handle this conversation. I didn't.
Absolutely. I don't know why something like that, if it's gone on this long, is still sitting there.
Don't steal anything.
think we've had 5 minutes, gang. Let's take our seats so we can reconvene and complete our business. I believe we are now at that point in the agenda of the city clerk's report.
City clerk has nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. And now the Milton Planning Board's item 1201 and item 1179. There's been a meeting by the Milton Planning Board with a recommendation. Mr. Jorgensen, would you like to update council on this?
I'll simply read the recommendation of the Planning Board into the record. The Milton Planning Board recommends an amendment to the existing regulations that allows shelters, churches, and other similar institutions to establish up to 2 off-premise directional signs that do not exceed 10 square feet in size each. These signs must be static in nature, but may be lit internally if desired. The Milton Planning Board also recommends that all other existing regulations for these types of signs remain unchanged.
And
Mr. Milstead is here if you'd like to have questions of him. He is currently assisting the Planning Board in its endeavors and activities.
Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen. Does council have any questions of Mr. Milstead about what occurred at the Milton Planning Board and its recommendation?
I'd like to make a comment. I thank you, Mr. Milstead and Mr. Jorgensen, for making this work for the churches. Felt like it was very important for them, for the community service that they provide. I don't have any questions, and I think the churches will be quite satisfied with what your department and the planning board has came up with. So thank you for your work.
Councilman Jordan?
I have talked with Zach Johnson, other parties that were involved in, and they are satisfied. I make a motion that we pass recommendations of
Second.
Planning Board.
Councilman Jordan, I believe you were saying, but not quite in the mic, that you did speak to the Ferris Hill representatives about whether they were satisfied with this approach?
Yes, I spoke with Zach Johnson. He's the pastor there. I happened to run across him at the BOCC meeting. We had the time to discuss this just a little bit, and they are in acceptance of this outcome.
I have a motion from Councilman Jordan, a second from Councilwoman Holly. Do we have some other questions or comments from council? Councilman Powell?
Yeah, I just had one question. So if I'm reading this correctly, it will not allow for the electronic variable message. That's correct, and the church is okay with where we're at?
They have looked at this situation and agree that they will be happy to be able to modify their existing sign and update their existing sign without the EVM sign.
Okay, that's what I was just wanting to clarify.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Powell. Are there any other comments or questions, discussion from council on this item? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Unanimously approved.
One note, Mayor, Council, this will require an amendment to the land development regulations. We will be bringing that forward for your consideration.
And did I believe this motion covered both 1201 and 1179? Is that what you understood, Mr. Jorgensen?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Next item is Wings Over Milton Public Art Contest, item 1166. Councilman Jordan.
Wings Over Milton Public Arts Contest, call for submissions. There was no objections to the art program. The language has been modified to remove any references from Angel Wings and Colette Miller, and a tagline has been added reflecting the sponsorship of Milton Gas. I make a motion that we pass this as it is.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilman Jordan, second by Councilman Powell. Is there any additional discussion on this item?
I've got one question, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Holly.
So Angel Wings will not be allowed in this competition?
Wings of all kinds will be considered by reviewers who are established for that purpose. We'll bring you back what we would consider to be the rules for the program at your committee of the whole meeting. Rules are promulgated from legislation that's passed. So that's what we'll bring back for you. You'll get to look at that then.
Okay. I put that in the form of a motion. Do we need that?
I think we already have a motion in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But thank you. Are there any other
fine.
questions or comments, discussion? All right. Please vote. Okay.
Item 11.
With one nay, it has passed. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Councilman Jordan. Next item.
1198. No, I got on the wrong place here. Excuse me. 1180. Impact fee basics for credited fees methodology. This is for the impact fees, the gathering of impact fees, the geographical information system, and the motion is, the idea is that we will approve the methodology being used, and I make a motion that we do approve that
Second.
methodology.
Was that Councilman Powell or Snow? Y'all sound so similar to me. I'm sorry. Councilman Jordan made the motion. Councilman Snow seconded. Is there any discussion or question about this item, or are we ready to vote? Please vote. All right, unanimously approved. In other business, we have item 1197, the Committee of the Whole time. At last week's meeting, there was a motion and a second, and it wasn't unanimously agreed upon. So we have it back up for further discussion. Is there any other discussion or alternative time to a 5:30 time? I know that we didn't have it unanimously approved, so there must be a reason why.
Mayor, this 5:30 time is inconvenient for a number of people. It is very convenient for some people, but it is inconvenient for a number of people. For me, for instance, I have an organization that has a meeting at 6:30 the same night that we have the OW meeting, and if we move this to 5:30, I'll never be able to go to that meeting. I feel like we ought to take staff into consideration when we figure the times of our meeting.
Well, one way to compromise to meet the concerns of those who'd like it to be later is to come up with some middle time between 3 and 5:30.
How about 4?
4:30?
I mean,
is that a
some
motion?
of the county that work for the county have the issues. I'm open, so anybody else.
It's only one day a month.
No, for me, I'm good. So I'm looking for guidance, but for whatever works best for the overall committee.
I still say we stick it with 5:30. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
So there's been a motion by Councilwoman Hathaway with a second by Councilwoman Rice to start the Committee of the Whole at 5:30. And I would just note, Councilman Jordan, that that organization, you can still go to that organization's meeting. You would miss the Committee of the Whole. And I think that is unfortunate. But I also think that organization that you're involved in is also important. So the one thing to keep in mind with the Committee of the Whole is nothing is finally decided at Committee of the Whole. There's opportunity for the public to be involved in the discussion then and following that time. The Committee of the Whole is an opportunity for each council member to be introduced to a topic and to debate it then. And if they can't fully debate it because they don't have enough information at that time, then they can ask that it be continued so they can continue to study it at another Committee of the Whole. So there are opportunities to study items and there's no final action taken, and that would be the only comforting word I could offer you, Councilman Jordan. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bruton.
Al Bruton, 6033 Breckenridge Drive. To all the council people up there, when you signed up for the job, you knew what time the meetings were, and then a certain group wants to come in and change them to amend to their special times. If they didn't know, that would be something different, but they knew the times, and now they want to go in and disrupt the apple cart. But that's just my personal feelings on it. from that particular aspect. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, sir. Councilman Snow, yes, sir.
The reason that, Mr. Bruton, the reason the times were moved to later because a lot of citizens are at work and can never come to the meeting. So these meetings have been pushed back, at a lot of them requesting it, and that's what's why this has occurred.
I respect that too, Councilman Snow, but one of the thoughts that has always occurred to me in view of the Committee of the Whole is that's an opportunity for staff to be informing council. So it seems that it's not that the public is going to be left out of the process because nothing is finally decided. And so if staff is informing council, if subject matter experts are reporting to council, then why not have it at an earlier time when staff is still at work so that we don't incur unnecessary overtime? That would have been my, suggestion to council to consider.
I believe there's very little overtime, Mayor. If I think Pam, are you the only one that's getting, Pam? You and Christy. So there's probably not going to be one way that's going to work perfect for everyone, and I understand what you're saying,
Yes,
Mayor.
sir.
And so whichever way the council chooses to go.
May I address that?
After Mr. Bruton makes his comment, I believe I have Mr. Jordan and Mr. Powell each have remarks.
I've been attending these meetings for over 6 years. A lot of you just got on board. You could count on your fingers how many people be here, unless it's a heated subject and all. You know what I mean? So why change to make convenient for a few when you've been had it at the regular time and it's been no problem in the past? Because people, if they're gonna come, they're gonna come until you've got something real heated. That's my viewpoint on it. I made time, and we can go from there.
Yes, sir. Councilman Jordan.
I agree that with Mr. Bruton that if people are going to come, time really doesn't matter. I look at the BOCC meetings, and they're starting at 8:30 now, and then they run at 9, and they conduct the business of the whole county, and people who have input make it to their meetings. Citizen input is very important. We have 2 meetings a month that start at 5:30. This meeting started at 3 o'clock. Just allows us to have the discussions we need without prolonging the meeting into the late hours of the night.
Jeff, in the last meeting you brought up that because it may take longer into the night, and this is a committee that it takes a long time. And Heather, to you did know going in, and this is 1 day a month. And couldn't you work through lunch or something that you could take that time off? That seems to be a good time. Now be with the streaming, there's been a couple times that we haven't been at the meeting, and I watched it at the office. So that's fortunate that we have that. So, you're talking 1 day a month that it's 3 o'clock. So that way there are some people that can attend and there's some people that can't attend. But like you said before, this could go on for a long time, 5-6 hours, and then you're talking really late. So, and it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. But what I'm saying is that, she's talking 1 day a month, and she could probably work through lunch a couple times, 15 minutes each time to go to accommodate for that.
But to answer your question, I can't do that.
Well, anyway, not all employees allow
that. It's just, 1 day a month. So,
Councilman Powell, you've been waiting.
Oh, it's not even worth saying. I made the motion based off of public input, and you're correct. I can take time off my job, and I have done it for the last 3 years, so I'm pretty sure that I can. But it takes more than me having an opinion for it to pass at the board. So obviously, but that was my opinion, the reason I suggested it. But that being said, some of us have jobs that we have to go to. So yes, it makes it more convenient. Am I willing to sacrifice that? Absolutely, and I have for the past 3 years. So.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further comments, please vote. I'm sorry. Please. Oh, the motion was, I believe, restated by Councilwoman Hathaway.
The motion was to move the committee of the whole meeting to 5:30.
And Councilwoman Rice seconded it. Three nays, but it does pass. So the committee of the whole will move to 5:30. And I would just point out that if we do have something that requires deep discussion, it may be to everyone's good if we set up a special meeting for those controversial items so that we can speak about them.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, while we're fresh, instead of getting tired after a lot
agree.
of other business. Okay, next item is Carpenter's Park Phase 1, item 1198.
Staff received proposals for Carpenter's Park Phase 1, the splash pad. Today, we opened the bids at 1. There was 1 bid submitted. We're not in a position to make a recommendation to council on its award or its rejection at this time. We will bring you additional information as we continue to research the subject.
Are you expecting another answer to your bid?
We are not.
Okay.
Is Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Randy, is there a time that you might call an emergency or call the mayor to call an emergency meeting to get that going, or
there is?
Okay. So
but
just try to get everybody aware of that.
We're, as I indicated at the last meeting, that very well could occur. 24 hours notice is what the law requires, and appropriate posting. It's what we will adhere to, as is always the case. And when we complete the process of evaluation, we'll be in a position to make a determination on the necessity of that meeting.
So this is informational at this point and no actions needed at this time.
That's correct.
All right, then next item on our agenda is TPO representative. That is Mayor Heather Lindsay. We have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and I look forward to reporting back to everyone at Committee of the Whole later this month. And of course, everyone's welcome to attend. It's at 9 a.m. If you have any questions on where it occurs, just let me know.
Where?
It's in what changes?
That's
it's going to be. Thank you. Yes, thanks for asking that. It is going to be at the West Florida Regional Library, 239 North Spring Street, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It does change locations, but tomorrow's location is North Spring Street, 239 North Spring Street. All right, Councilwoman Sharon Holly, TDC representative, do you have anything to report?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I have something that I would like to speak to council. We received a post-event report. TDC did. They held their last meeting February the 7th. And the post-event report from the Milton Rhythm and Ribs Festival. And this is what I want to ask council, because it says, and I'll just read it real quick. They asked questions about the event in order for them to get a better idea of the monies that they're allotting for these type of events, which is good. But they listed the number of visitors that was stated in the original application as 5,000, actual visitors 3,000. Budgeted revenue as stated in application was $126,400. The actual revenue was $48,783.69. And it states, if there is a difference between estimated and actual revenue, please state why. Well, the reason that's listed on the post-event report is City Council decided to keep the event small to save on upfront cost. In doing so, we did not charge admission. And I thought, where did that come from? Does any council member remember us voting on that? Because I don't remember that.
May I answer?
Councilman
Yes,
Powell?
please.
Yes, they originally came forward wanting an artist that was going to cost quite a bit of outlay of money, and it was going to be actual tickets sold to the event instead of it being a free event to the public. And we decided not to expend that kind of money for an artist to be there, a major artist. if I remember correctly, those were the figures that they gave us at that time when we decided not to go with that and to keep the event smaller than what they originally had it planned.
Yep. I can't, I've never heard of city council asking to keep an event small. But anyway, and then the other question I have on here, it says, what is the number of hotel room nights generated by this event? And it said 15 rooms booked by the city. So did we approve for 15 hotel rooms to be booked and paid for by the city for the event?
I'm not aware. Mr. Jorgensen, are you aware?
I'm not, but I'll defer to Mr. Prestistator. I don't believe that the city ever authorized expenditures on the part of the city for the rooms. I think what he may be referring to is he booked the rooms on behalf of people who were participating in the event.
That is correct, sir. The request had come down when we first put in the application to submit for Rhythm and Ribs, as Mr. Powell had stated, that we were going for a larger event. It was requested from the mayor at the time that we wanted a large act. The city of Milton wanted to bring major entertainment, so I was tasked with finding that. We were able to find an artist, but we scaled back per the request of City Council. The rooms you were referencing are actually for the Florida Barbecue Association, the members that had to come down, because we had approved for FBA to come here and sanction the event. We also booked for artists and a production company that had to come in. The production company came from out of town, so everyone had to come in. We had to house them. That was per the request and contract, everything that was approved. These were not rooms for staff. These were not rooms for anyone else other than individuals that were there for that purpose of the event. It was not 15 in one night. It was over the span of 2 days.
But it was still 15 rooms.
It would be a total of 15 rooms. So it would have been, 7 one day and then it was 8 the other, or whatever it may be. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was because we were bringing in members. When you approved Florida Barbecue Association to come in and sanction the event, it specified that they had to come and travel to the destination. They brought in judges, 20 some odd judges from all around Florida. People had to come to the town to be here for the event. So that was the information that was presented.
Okay, but it says booked by the city. So who paid for this? Did the city or did Main Street Milton pay for it out of their funding?
I operate as the event coordinator for the city, so I planned the event for the city. The city was the one that paid for it. I am the city event coordinator.
Okay, so that was in lieu of, okay.
It was a city event, not a Main Street event?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Rhythm and Ribs was a city event?
Milton Rhythm and Ribs was the title of the event. That's what everyone had approved. Milton Rhythm and Ribs. The logo had Milton Rhythm and Ribs.
Well, that may be true, but here we go. I'm not trying to argue. I'm not trying to be negative.
No, absolutely.
But if we're advertising and in your financial reports, in Main Street Milton's financial reports, it has Rhythm and Ribs Festival. It's an event that Main Street Milton was, as I am an employee for Main Street Milton, we put that in our reports. I, as a Main Street Milton employee, the City of Milton employee, I organize your events, and this was the request. So I put together the event, and it was approved by the city. That would be then in the Main Street Milton report. So it's real confusing on whom you work for and whom Mr. Spears works for.
Both of them work for the City of Milton.
I think the question is, because of the way it showed up on the report, it wasn't clear where the funding came from. Was it Main Street funding or was it city funding? But it sounds like you've answered that question. Okay.
That it was city funding?
Yes,
is
ma'am.
That correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's what he said.
So, and just so you know, the report that I had provided to TDC, when he specified that it was originally stated at 5,000 individuals to show up to the event, that was because the event was first scheduled to be a much larger event. A cold front, of course, also hit us, which took us down quite a bit too, but nevertheless, with the lower dollar amount spent and still achieving $3,000 or 3,000 people for a first-year festival, that's a big feat.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did the 3,000 people that attended the festival, where did that number come from? Like, how do they generate that?
That's on the post-event form? That's where
It was individuals that were tracked as coming into the event.
Okay.
And so that
Because I
was,
just know, like, whenever I was there, people were parking and coming in many different directions, so that's where I was just trying to...
the number is not an exact, precise number. We don't have tickers
Right.
sitting there counting everyone in every single location.
Yeah.
We don't have staff. It's just Ed and I at Main Street. So we're not able to be capable of doing that. We have volunteers that were able to track numbers. We received information from a large number of people that specified we were anywhere from 3,000, 3,500. The estimates that we provided and was approved on by city staff is that everyone felt that 3,000 was a very comfortable number that we were moving
Okay,
forward.
that's all. And thank you.
So, just to follow up, if I could, Mayor, the Milton Rhythm and Ribs was a first attempt to conduct an activity of this scale and that nature. As is the case with all that we do, we get better at it each time it's done. I think that the work that was done in regard to that event was a learning experience. I do think the event, in light of the conditions at the time it was held, was reasonably successful. I know that in our post discussions and follow-up on methods that we can employ to try to improve our experience, we've taken away a lot from that activity, and we look forward to holding similar events in the future. It may not be Rhythm and Ribs, but it would be something that the knowledge we gained from the undertaking of that activity can be applied to, and we look forward to better weather and more success.
If I may ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Steve, you've already applied for this year Rhythm and Rib with TDC.
No, ma'am.
For
The TDC
5,000?
grants haven't been approved. Actually, at this last meeting that I attended, they were putting forward to approve the new TDC grants, so nothing has been submitted yet.
Okay, well, you know, the end of March, we're going to be going through those, so if you haven't submitted, you better.
Well, actually,
You
they
need to.
just approved it, so that just happened. I was at that meeting. It just took place. So we will be putting in for everything we can.
Well,
Every
I'm
single
saying,
event.
we're going to go through them the end of March for the entire year. Okay,
Yeah,
just so you
very,
know.
very well aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what she wants to make sure you're aware of the deadline. It sounds like you're trying to meet it, or you already have met it. You plan on meeting whatever deadline there is.
It was just approved, but I'm already prepared for it.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Is there anything else from the TDC report that you'd like to add, Councilwoman Holly?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
May I add something about TDC? A little bit of discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we need an alternate assigned for TDC, and I don't know that their charter would allow someone to sit on the board, but at least someone present, because for the last 2 meetings, we have not had representation.
Okay, we'll take that up then. Thank you for alerting me to that. We now are moving on to council reports, and Councilwoman Rice, you had added several items.
Yes, ma'am. First was to pull item 1004 from the consent agenda back to the regular agenda. And I spoke with the Santa Rosa County Restore Coordinator regarding that. That was the Restore Act Quinn Street Marina Phase 1. She recommends bringing the new info to the Board of County Commissioners for evaluation of options prior to withdrawal. And I think Mr. Jorgensen has some information about that too.
I, too, had a conversation with the store coordinator and others. My recommendation is to keep the project in the queue at Santa Rosa County. I understand that as they evaluated all of the previous submissions requesting support and funding, it became apparent that many of them have inaccurate estimates of the costs of the projects that they've described. In fact, what was indicated to me is the deviance from the estimate to the new cost pales in comparison to some others, which I was pleased to understand. County staff will be making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners on what direction they take in regard to all of the projects in the near future, and we'll await the results of that conversation. For now, my advice is to keep it in the queue, and we go from there.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Councilman Powell.
Just to be clear, what action would that require from us tonight?
Nothing other than to indicate that we should keep it in the queue rather than withdraw the application. Okay. It's been removed from consent, so as a result, you haven't provided staff with the direction to withdraw the application. Therefore, we won't, and it continues.
But we can just leave it as is, and it will stay. Okay. Wanted to clarify.
Does that cover what you wanted to say about that? And so there's no further action to be taken on that particular item. It's just staying in the queue. Okay, what next did you want to address?
Okay, so next was a discussion about check register. And there's a few things going on here. We get the check register at the beginning of this meeting to sign. And what we're signing is that the checks have been written. I personally don't see a reason why I would sign a paper saying checks have been written. These, unfortunately, because of our software, they can't include the memo line for what the checks were written for. I spoke with Ms. Cates about that, and she was so kind to provide me with a more detailed list that she emailed to me. It ended up with included memos and notes. It ended up being about 300 pages, and I still couldn't make very clear about what everything was. And then there's also the P card, and there'll be, I don't know, the last month there was like $52,000 under the P card, and then there's another report that you can get from regions on that to tell where those were written to. So there's just a lot of information that's not included on that check register, and we're signing it that these checks were written. I don't feel comfortable signing it with that limited information. I don't think that is a problem on the clerk's end. I think it's a software limitation. I've asked the city attorney if I have a duty or obligation to sign that. I would think that other council members and the mayor may also be interested on whether or not they are required to sign that. Unless someone here knows where that came from, that we're signing this, or maybe we could ask the attorney to look into that if we have that duty or obligation.
Are you making that in the form of a motion?
Do I need to? I didn't know. Maybe if you had information.
Well, I was just thinking.
Okay.
I have been doing that for 44 years.
And that's the way we did it, so it's just
been followed.
So we don't know if there's a duty or obligation to sign it. It might just be the way we've operated.
You know that there's checks been written and they have been paid by y'all.
If the question is what is the council member's duty with regard to the approval of the register and the consequences thereof, that's a question I would have to analyze. It appears this has been a customary manner of handling the review of all monies issued from city accounts to all the council members who have responsibility for that as a body, so that there can be accountability. I certainly think that's salutary. As to whether or not there's some consequence or concern on the part of the council with regard to signing those accounts, we can certainly look into that if the council's.
My concern is that I'm being asked to sign something and I can't tell what these checks are for. And I'm just signing that checks were written, and I don't see a value in me signing that checks were written.
And I hear you asking for clarification on that, and to direct the city attorney to do that, we need to have a majority agree with you. So do you want to make that in the form of a motion? So that we can direct them to
motion that the city attorney look into our duty or obligation to sign the check register.
Second.
Was that Councilman Snow? Second by Councilman Snow. If there's no question or discussion about it, would y'all...
Madam Mayor.
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Messick.
Jimmy Messick, 6830 Pine Street, Milton. I, too, had a question on that when I sat on the council coming into it. At that time, the statement at the bottom of the list was, we approve the expenditures listed here. And I had a real question about that, and it was changed to where we acknowledge that these have been written. So I don't know what it is now, whether it's the same wording or not, but I didn't like the word of approving it, because that then puts your stamp of approval on anything that's on there, but you're acknowledging that it has been, done. So is the wording still acknowledge?
Yes.
Okay, and I didn't have any problem with that part then.
What I will say, and if it gives, and this I don't need to get in or do more research on, is it is the body that approves any expenditures, and the city staff are duty bound to follow the approvals or disapprovals, as the case may be, of council with regard to any expenditures made in the city. But I understand the form of the motion, and it's certainly a matter we can look into as to those particular.
And can I just say something else while we're talking about it? Because I want to make it really clear. I don't have question that they're okay. I actually met with Ms. Cates and went over the checks and balances, and it all looks great. There's a lot of them. It was just that when I then look at that check register, I'm almost signing a blank document as far as I'm concerned. Maybe later we talk about software upgrades.
I understand. So there's a motion by Councilwoman Rice and a second by Councilman Snow to ask for the city attorney's expertise on what the legal duty is of council to sign off on this voucher register supplemental minute record is what it's titled in front of me. Is there any other question or comment about this motion before you vote? If not, please vote. All right, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. We look forward to your report. You have been authorized.
Thank you.
And I believe you have one other item that you added, Councilwoman Rice. Do you want to take that up now?
Yes, ma'am. This was regarding information from the Board of County Commissioners meeting that on January 24th, and then I also had some additional comments. So I'd be happy to let everyone know, for all that's interested, during the January 24th Board of County Commissioners meeting, the 87 connector funding was listed as one of the top 5 legislative priorities for the county's lobbying firm to pursue. And then I'd also like to point out that in the same meeting, the widening of Highway 98 was discussed, and it was stated that FDOT proposals included flyovers. However, citing concerns over socioeconomic impacts, the board approved without objection to send a resolution to FDOT supporting the at-grade option only. And I point this out to show that other areas right here in our county are not waiting for the PD&E study results before taking a stand for what they feel is best for their situation. And it brings me back to, why are we waiting? The lobbyists told us that we should send the letters often and to everyone so that people higher than even our district will know our wants. I can give you other examples. Gulf Breeze didn't wait for a decision by DOT for the 3-mile bridge, neither did Pensacola. DOT tried to push 4-lane through Perdido Key, and the community did not want it, and the PD&E was completed, but it's not happening. So right now in West Pensacola, they're looking at a study for Cervantes that was 4-laned and caused problems. So now they're looking at traffic calming and removing lanes. This is within our own TPO. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rice. Do we have anything else from council for council reports? Hearing none, the mayor report. I just wanted to remind everybody about the Mardi Gras parade. There is a Mardi Gras parade coming back to Milton, and it is at 6 p.m. on Saturday the 16th. So I hope everybody will come out, and I think Councilwoman Hathaway is going to be one of the judges of the floats, and I hear the floats are going to be completely awesome. So good luck with that judging.
Thank you.
City manager's report.
I have nothing further to the agenda, Mayor.
The only other business we have on our agenda is item 1200, the Main Street Milton Board of Directors December minutes. Those have been distributed and I assume reviewed by everyone here. Is there anything anyone would like to discuss regarding those minutes?
Lord, no.
All right, then we are adjourned.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Let's pray about it.
Now,
let's all go get in the dark room and
Hopefully it doesn't run you off. Thank you.
If you put that on my calendar, right?
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Jerry.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Randy. Real quick.
I wish.
Yeah, I did.
I was saying.
I was trying to keep it from devolving, so yeah.
No, I have to look, because I wasn't sure if it's headed.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was trying to keep it from getting more controversial.
A good presentation.
Yeah. No.